This time I'm making a Mandalorian helmet. Let me show you how. So a while ago I printed this helmet in pieces because I had to make sure this back piece was removable here. I spent a lot of time filling in all the seams with filler, and it's still not perfect. I think if we could print a helmet in one piece, it would be a little better. So the Creality CR10 has a fairly large build surface. I think I'm going to be able to get it in one piece. I just have to hope that the power doesn't go out and that the filament doesn't run out. Alright, so I found a file on Thingiverse for a Mandalorian helmet. I scaled it to 98.7% so it would fit on the bed. And I'm going to print it with support all around the edge, but not in the middle, because I think the printer will be able to close the gap without it. So the power just flashed, just now, in the middle of the day. It's not raining, it's not anything, it's just, starting to dry up, and the power went out for a half a second. Apparently it's too much for me to ask for my town's electricity to work for 4 days in a row, but luckily I have a plan. I just measured out how much has been printed already, and I'll just move the model down by that much in Cura to print the rest separate. Then I could glue it on after. This also means I could add details to the top of the helmet with a smaller layer height, where detail is normally lost with a larger layer height. Alright, now we pretty much follow the basic steps in getting a helmet ready for finish. That is, you glue all of the pieces together, you fill in the seams with Bondo, and then you prime it and sand it until it's smooth. I'm going to wait to glue those detail pieces on until the helmet has a finish on it, just so they don't get in the way of sanding. Now I want this helmet to have a metallic finish, and you could use spray paint, but it's not the greatest. I've heard people use this thing called Rub and Buff for something like this, so I managed to get my hands on some, and I think we're going to try it out. Alright, so I decided to go with the silver leaf color. Now a little bit of this stuff goes a long ways. All you do is you get a piece of paper towel, a cloth, or even your finger, and you just spread it out evenly across the surface. I'll also use a Q-tip to get in the hard-to-reach areas. Other than the misprint we had at the beginning, this project has been relatively straightforward. So let's make things a little more difficult, shall we? Let's vacuum form the visor. Alright, so I just have a super basic homemade vacuum forming box. So what's going to happen is I'll put a sheet of plastic inside of this frame, and I'll secure it with steel clamps. Then I'll stick it in the oven at 350 degrees until it starts to sag. Then I'll take it out, and I'll turn on the vacuum, which will suck the air down through the holes in the top of this box here. And with a mold on top, I'll lower the plastic down, and we'll be left with a mold. What could go wrong? So what went wrong here was these little things on the ends of the clamps stopped me from getting a complete seal. We just have to adjust the clamps to fix the problem though, and let's give it another try. Wow, who could have saw this coming? Well, to fix this, we have to print a new visor with support this time. All that happened here was I wiggled the frame on the way down and it caused the plastic to crease. This time I'm going to make sure that I lower it completely straight, and I'm also adding some clay so the plastic doesn't have to stretch farther than it needs to. Alright, so let's dye. What you'll need is dye. I'll use iPoly. You can get it on Amazon. It's relatively cheap. So once you have your dye, you're going to need some water at 145 degrees. You just take that, put it in a bucket, and then add in your little packet of dye. You mix that around for a little bit, and then you add in your color intensifier, mix that all in, and then you do your visors. You can maybe do 4 or 5 visors at the same time with one packet. And then you just dye it for 45 minutes, and you take it out and rinse every 7 minutes or so. last but not least, we just have to make our visor into a one-way mirror. I like to use spray chrome, so all you do is put a little in your airbrush. It could be a cheap airbrush. I paid 20 bucks for mine at Canadian Tire. Anyways, you just spray it back and forth lightly until you get the tint that you want. Make sure to check it every couple of seconds because it's really easy to overdo this step. And then once you do that, you'll be good to hot glue it into your helmet. Alright, as with the previous helmet, I'm pretty proud of how this one came out, but there's still some things I would do differently. The first being, I could still see some print lines, so I think next time I would use something other than just filler primer to fill those in. I might use some spot putty or something. The next thing is the visor. Vacuum forming it was quite an experience, but I think it's better to just use a visor that's already been made, or to just use thinner plastic, as with the Clone Trooper helmet. One thing that was nice is I was able to get it mostly in one piece, but if I were to do it again, I would probably try for 2 or 3 pieces instead of just one. I'll spend a little bit of time filling in those gaps with Bondo, but I think in the end it's just a better option for printing. I also think if I were to do this again, I would do a little bit of battle damage, but the person I'm making this for didn't want that, so I didn't add it on. Other than that, I'm really happy with the finish and how that turned out. It almost looks like actual metal, and I would definitely use that rub and buff stuff again if I were to make another helmet. Well, that's all I have for you guys today, so I guess it's time to say goodbye. If you like this video, then make sure to hit the thumbs up, and if you want to know when more stuff like this happens, then be sure to hit subscribe. And as usual, rewind this video when you're done with it for the next viewer. And remember, we're Blarg. Blarg stands for Baddish Labor Accelerates Rhinoceros Gangle.